Hi everyone, #1 Marmaduke fan here, and today I'm looking at Batman Death by Design, script by Chip Kidd, art by Dave Taylor. And this is going to be kind of interesting for me because Dave Taylor is an example of someone working in what I call the Renaissance style, or like the traditional human figure, 3D perspective drawing influence style from like dating back to the Renaissance. And two influences that get mentioned in this are Hugh Ferris, the architect, and Andrew Loomis. And one of my commenters actually mentioned Andrew Loomis a while ago, and I thought, oh, I'll check that out. And then I realized, hey, I've got an Andrew Loomis book, and he's really interesting. We should pull that out and talk about it in relation to Dave Taylor's art. Also, I kind of want to talk more about like things I'm doing on my channel that I've been forgetting to talk about. I've made like a New Year's pledge to try to grow this channel to 10,000 subs this year. And so I've got a video about this, but I haven't been talking about it. So I'm going to try to remember to remind you. I'm going to remember to remind you guys to remember to do this stuff. But if you would like to get some free video games, just comment #SubToMarm and share this video to help me get to 10K subs. And I'm going to be giving away 10 video games to 10 people who have commented on any of my videos this year with #SubToMarm. I'm going to announce 2 video games I'm giving away today at the end of this video. So stick around for that. I have too many video games on Steam. I got to give them away. All right, Renaissance stuff. So first, let's see, should I talk about Loomis first or Dave Taylor first? I'll talk about Loomis first so I can get that out of the way. So Loomis is mentioned as one of like Dave Taylor's inspirations. And what intrigued me about Loomis is I would kind of describe him as someone who is interested in the intellectual side of drawing. So he was interested in trying to teach, not just teach his students a few tricks, but he wanted to teach them how to think about drawing. Oh no, I showed a butt on YouTube. Oh no, but he wanted to teach his students how to think about drawing the human figure rather than just like, I don't know, copy like my 10-step solution. So it's really interesting because as you draw, you are thinking the entire time you're doing it. If you want to draw well, you're not just going into passive mode. So Loomis focuses on that. And then I think he'd be really, really interesting to look at from a comic art perspective. And as much as I respect Dave Taylor, and I can see the influence of Loomis on him, this is going to be a partial critique of how I think Dave Taylor is not quite living up to like his idols. This is one of my favorite pages in this whole book, is the John and Mary problems, which is just a real concrete illustration of a simple way to think about perspective and low and high angles. So he shows like, straight on angle, standing up, low angle, super high angle, super low horizon angle, like exaggerated one zoomed out, and then he shows some things that may happen when figures are not related to a single true horizon. And so he just sort of comedically illustrates this. The figures appear tipped or somehow wrong. John may be falling, or Mary doing gymnastics. Mary gets too big, or she may get too small, or appear to be diving. Your drawing is rejected, and no one really seems to know what is wrong. Thus endeth the John and Mary. So what's interesting about this is Loomis was, what would I call him? Kind of like a neo-traditionalist. He was interested in retaining like traditional styles and knowledge from the Renaissance era in a time when everything was moving towards modernism and abstract expressionism. And he's also, you can even like see it in this. There's a huge overlap between his style and the American comic book style. So I think this is a good illustration of one of the reasons, from an art history reason, why comic books are so interesting, is all of the great talents, all of the would-be Michelangelos and Leonardo da Vinci's of the 20th and 21st century. They all do comic books because that's where that skill set is actually valued. It's no longer valued in the art academy or the museums. It's now those kinds of guys now do Batman books. Oh no, my microphone. So, why did I say I respect Dave Taylor, but I don't think he's quite living up to the Andrew Loomis legacy? Well, I think it has to do in how Taylor approaches his polishes. So here's my spoiler-free review of Batman Death by Design, and then I'll flip it open and we'll obviously have spoilers. Chip Kidd writes a fun, interesting kind of mystery about architecture and whether there's like an evil plot going around Gotham involving architecture. And so like the architecture theme in the book kind of ties into the interest in architecture and the drawing. There are like a few little cutesy-bootsy moments from Kidd where I felt like he was just trying to do like, oh, it's so silly random talk, right? And I thought that undermined like the really dense 1940s vibe of everything. I don't think the couple cutesy bootsy moments were enough to ruin the book for me. They were just a little annoying. So a couple little annoying moments and an otherwise really fun, really dense, moody, 1940s style Batman crime story. Dave Taylor is the most interesting part of this book, and Dave Taylor, my respect for Dave Taylor is why I should recommend you definitely try to pick up and give a read to Batman Death by Design. So I like his concept art, and I really like this drawing of Batman, and I kind of wish the entire book had the energy of this Batman drawing, where later he'll describe his process. He'll use blue pencil for little sketches in the beginning. He'll pick like his best sketch, and then he will draw in HB pencils and ink with graphite, and he says he does not erase, which is a school of thought for traditional drawing, like the no erase school, which is smart. What I respect about that is that prevents you from getting into, oh no, I gotta erase that and draw his mouth again. Oh no, I gotta erase it again and draw his mouth again. The other school of thought that I actually prefer is draw with erasing method, where you think of the whole drawing tonally. That's just like a little personal preference thing for how I draw, but where was I going with this? Okay, so where I think that Taylor is getting a little lost is combining his contour line drawing with his tonal shading. So if this Batman is an example of like a really, fascinating thing. So here's contour. Let me see if I can show you the difference. So he's shading with like a broad graphite brush in this. See, so he's like holding the stick sideways and kind of like making big strokes, filling in large areas. That's shading or a tonal approach to drawing. This is more of a contour line approach to drawing, where we get that strong contour right along the chin, right down the neck. Like, you don't literally have lines around your hands, right? But you use the lines to indicate where in space the shapes of the human body end. And where it can get tricky is trying to combine these two things together. So in this, he's just got some light, shading around the, softer sides of the face. Oh, and he's also, of course, very influenced by geometry and architecture. I actually think the geometry and architecture is unassailable. I think that's absolutely one of the most brilliant parts of this book. My little niggling critique is a bit more of how he puts it all together. So I'm picking on this page because there's like a few awkward faces for, this lovely lady, like her face got a little squash there, maybe a little erasing would have helped. And the Joker is supposed to be like infecting her with laughing gas here, which explains why her face is kind of creepy here. But I think the problem is because he's doing a no erasing method, that means he's probably getting stuck on a first draft, whereas a Renaissance style, it's just like how to draw books the Marvel way. What's amazing about how to make comics the Marvel way is how connected that is to Renaissance training techniques, where you would draw over your lines over and over and over again until you got it right. Because the first draft almost always has errors because you're trying to interpret what you see and you interpret things incorrectly. So you draw it the first time, you use measurements to objectively correct your mistakes in the human form and the human face. You draw over it again and again, and actually it kind of gives it an energy because you see the history of the drawing. You can see the very first little sketch underneath, and you can see more and more confidence with each successive layer in this sketch. In these, they're a little bit more like first draft. The other interesting thing about it color-wise is Taylor is using a little touches of digital color on an otherwise black and white grayscale book. And I think the orange colors are meant to evoke the idea of Conte crayon or red chalk, which is also a popular Renaissance medium. But I can kind of tell it was digitally colored graphite drawing to look like Conte. What if he actually used Conte? What if instead of little white highlights at the very end of the book, he's got an example where, I don't know if that's digital, but it looks more like gouache or white charcoal or white chalk on top of his drawing, where that feels really, this white highlight feels connected with everything else. But maybe, for example, on, I don't know, one of these, where, like the Joker's head is just like clearly light green, airbrushed softly in Photoshop on top of his drawing. So I think it's ultimately what I disconnect with is appreciating his drawings as a complete whole. I also think he needs to amp up the dynamism in some places. So he's very strong at expressions like, consternation, leaning back, relaxed, leaning forward, stern, but this needs a little bit more of like the old, like high angle, low angle stuff in the talkie scenes. These are actually some good, I really respect this artist, and I respect I respect this art so much, I think you should pick up the whole book. Okay, so here, I'm going to point to you an example of where I think that Taylor is giving me more of what I'm looking for. So in this one, Batman approaches X-Acto. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the spoiler warning. Spoiler warning, I'm spoiling things in this book. So Batman approaches X-Acto, and X-Acto presses the button on his jacket, and then boom. I love this boom because it's drawn in the same style as everything else, and it connects with everything else. I don't like the sound effects that are just superimposed on top of his drawing. This is part of the drawing. It fits with everything. And Batman is blasted back. And as Batman is blasted back, there's impact against the wood, and his cape is like this... I make the sound effect because I can't describe it. They're quick, gestural, horizontal lines pushing forward, meaning that it looks like Batman's getting knocked backwards and his cape is fluttering this way. And then there's this stupid thing where Batman gets right up and walks right up to him, and then he does the same stupid thing. Like, is this the scary moment? Is this the silly moment where Batman is being a greenhorn and he's not that experienced? I don't know. I thought this was kind of unintentionally hilarious at Batman's expense, and he kind of came off uncool. Whereas the image is saying cool, dynamic, dramatic, danger, excitement. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Try to find another example. All right, so maybe this is a good example. So Joker, it has a contour line drawing, right? A really strong line all along his face, on the inside of his face. But these are clearly like the first one, the first pass at it. It doesn't have that same kind of dynamic buildup as what we saw over in here. So this is actually perfect. This is the perfect 2 pages to illustrate it. A little stiff, a little bit first drafty. Went with like what he did the first time. This is a little bit more built up. This is a little bit more dense and layered, where the rocks are a little bit more scattered around. The cape is fluttering upwards. The action lines are just quickly sketched in, and they're felt out rather than like. What would it be? Contour line drawing is beautiful, and actually a lot of, almost all comic books throughout history have used contour line drawing, solid black lines indicating, where everything is, kind of in a cartoony style. But I think it's hard to combine the contour line style with the tonal full shading drawing style. So I think Taylor is best at it when he's sketching it out and building it up, not when he's just like kind of laying out one line, and then finishing the face and calling it a day and moving on. I think it's these drawings where he needs a second pass at it, or to like, if he doesn't want to erase, then draw light the first time and draw harder the second time to build up that to build up that darkness and that energy. I think I've made my point. Oh, and then I want to show this because this is like the most exciting stuff in the whole book. So if I wasn't 100% happy with the presentation of the characters in the book itself, I'm 100% happy with the gestural sketches at the end. I want to maybe try to find some of his comments. I've never had to study so hard as I did for Death by Design. The months of research for reference sourcing, experimenting, and developing. I wanted everything in this book to feel real, authentic, and true to the setting. Excellent work. I really got that feel from the architecture. It's a magical experience, quickly drawing out the story as I read, visualizing a person's thoughts. It's voodoo. So here's some really solid contour line drawings where it's like he can do that thing really good, he can do the shading thing really good, but can you kind of see how this line drawing of the Joker has a bit of an energy to it, whereas maybe in the older ones, I lost that page, where the Joker was knocked down, his face was a little bit flatter. This is a good drawing of the Joker. We've got like the light gestures there and the darker pressure down here to really, give him that sunken look. I don't know. I think I made my point already, so I'm not going to bag on the art anymore because I love the art. I doodle, not sketch. I learned from Alex Toth to get it right on a small scale or it won't work. 98% of the time, I'll end up using my first idea. The image that pops as I read a script is inevitably the one that'll get published. And I like how he's thinking about like the bat design and the cowl and hanging up from overhead. This is a good drawing too, where, no feet. Lots of great artists don't draw feet, right? Because it's just the idea of the figure of Batman that's being explored here. Oh, and a really beautiful woman. I think that's helpful for like these old kind of, what are they called? Hard-boiled, noirish stories, is to have like that beautiful 1930s dame who's, and she's got to have that absolutely drop-dead gorgeous look. And she's a great character. She has a fun tete-a-tete with Bruce throughout this. All the work in this book is produced with good old-fashioned pencils, first in blue and then inked in graphite. I made no corrections with an eraser. What I drew got published. The shading and color I overlaid on computer. This is my most honest work. I really wish color was somehow worked into the traditional art process of this style so that the final look retained the traditional look of his sketches. And then he's got like a nice little description of their projects at the end. So a excellent book, a great example of the Renaissance style in comics. Pick it up. Don't let my little nitpicky critiques be translated as me not respecting Dave Taylor or thinking you should not get this book. This is an example of a Renaissance approach to the arts in a Batman comic book, and I think you should definitely give it a good old look. I am giving away Sniper Elite 3, trying not to dox myself on this whiteboard. Sniper Elite 3 and Full Metal Fury. So if you would like either of these games, write a comment in this comment section below with the one you'd be interested in winning, and I will be picking 2 people, one to win Sniper Elite 3, one to win Full Metal Furies. Yeah, and you can, if you want to win either of them, then comment with either of them. Comment with the one you would either of these you'd like to win. All right, I'll pick the winner next week. With that, I'm Noah Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. I forgot to put my supporters on the board. Okay, well, magic of editing. Here are my supporters. Thank you guys. I'll catch you later.